Dr. Corona, at the American Society of Retina Specialists meeting, you presented a paper on silicone oil droplets in the vitreous cavity after Avastin injection with insulin syringes. You outline your paper for us and explain what your paper was about.
Yeah, so in the summer of 2016, across the United States, people were noticing increased silicone oil droplets after intravitreal Avastin, and it affected our practice. We noticed a lot of cases that we hadn't seen before. And initially, we thought it might have just been a one-off, and we thought maybe there's a few droplets here and there, but we noticed the problem didn't go away. As a result, we kind of went back and we wanted to see what was the incidence of this complication. And what we found out was that basically the incidence of silicone oil droplets went up almost 57-fold over a 7-month period. We had one case in the previous 7 months, and after the summer of 2016, we had over 59 cases. So that was very alarming. Why was this happening? And they were all coming from our Avastin, which had been compounded and given to us in insulin syringes, and that was very concerning. And when we looked at the actual patients, what we found out were that 70% of the patients were actually symptomatic, and they had a very unique complaint. They all noticed floaters with rays of light. And unlike other floaters with air bubbles, these did not go away. The patients were quite bothered. The one good thing was that their symptoms appeared to improve over time. Although we only followed these patients for about 2 to 8 months afterwards, about 90% of our symptomatic patients, the symptoms resolved despite the silicone oil droplets still being present. There were no cases of intraocular inflammation, elevated eye pressure, or any other complications, so that was reassuring. And these cases were basically observed at this time. We didn't have to go to vitrectomy to remove these silicone oil droplets.
Was this a compounding issue?
Yeah, so the first thing we did is we called our compounding pharmacy saying, what's going on? And our compounding pharmacy told us they hadn't changed any of their normal preparation. And the interesting thing was that when we talked to our colleagues, this was happening nationwide to multiple compounding pharmacies. So what I suspect is that I think the company that makes the insulin syringes changed their oil content or what they use for lubrication for the syringes, and then it affected all the compounding pharmacies that then use it to distribute bevacizumab.
So are you outlining this in terms of a possible change, or are we talking about we just have to deal with this? Yeah, no, so I think a couple things that I think are important takeaway points for us in practice. I think one, if you do use bevacizumab with insulin syringes, you should counsel your patients about the risk of floaters. I think you should, to avoid the risk of floaters, what our practice has done is we've now used syringes that don't use any silicone oil lubricant. And basically there are syringes out there and we pay extra for it, but basically that way we don't have to worry about it, because although the complication's not terrible, these symptoms appear to get better, they are quite bothersome for the patient, and I think it's something if you can avoid, it's always a better option to do. So in the long run, what's the take-home message in all this? Yeah, I think the take-home message is I think you have to really be careful where you get your bevacizumab from. I think insulin syringes, although they're very convenient, there is a higher risk of it appears to be for these oil droplets, and I think you got to really look at ways to avoid this in the future. I think utilizing syringes that don't use any type of silicone oil lubricant is probably the safest bet.